What do you get when you mix unlimited Cold War funding with science fiction level ambition and zero regard for safety or sanity? You get real Soviet machines so bizarre, they look photoshopped. Flying tanks, giant laser tanks, UFO-shaped airships. These weren't concept art, they were real, and some were terrifying. They defied logic, laughed at budgets, and dared physics to say no. Some were decades ahead of their time, others should never have left the drawing board. But all of them were very real. Strap in. From nuclear railguns to sea-skimming monsters, these are the 10 craziest Soviet machines that actually existed and almost broke the laws of physics. They weren't just weapons. They were statements of power, fear, and engineering insanity. Some of them still haunt scrapyards and nightmares today. 2 B-1OK, nuclear artillery overkill.
Number 10.
2 B-1OK was the Soviet answer to, what if we made a tank-sized cannon for nuclear shells? It had a 65-foot barrel, longer than a school bus, and fired 420-millimeter atomic shells up to 28 miles. But here's the twist. Every time it fired, the recoil shattered its own frame. Bolts flew off. The electronics failed. It could only fire once every 5 minutes. It was meant to terrify NATO, not win battles. A mobile doomsday flex, too big for its own good. Crews wore protective gear just to operate it. It was so unstable, engineers feared it might explode from its own shockwave. In the end, it was too dangerous to deploy, even for the Soviets. 91K-17 Shati, the Soviet laser tank. This wasn't from a sci-fi movie. It was a laser tank. Armed with 13 synthetic ruby lasers, the 1K-17 Shati could blind enemy optics, sensors, even satellite lenses. It looked like a floating crystal cannon. One beam could melt delicate equipment instantly. But it cost millions to build, was bulky, and violated the Geneva Conventions. The Soviets shelved it. But the dream of battlefield lasers never really died. Its crystals alone cost a fortune and took years to produce. It could fry optics, but not armor, making it more intimidating than effective. Still, it paved the way for modern directed energy weapons. 8 Zveno Project, flying aircraft carriers. Before drones, the Soviets had a better idea. Launch fighter planes from bombers in mid-air. Yes, really. The Zveno Project saw bombers carry up to 5 parasite fighters, docked like barnacles. The bombers flew into enemy airspace, then released the fighters like hornets. It actually worked a few times in World War II. But when jet fighters took over, the concept crash-landed in history. Mid-air docking was dangerous, but revolutionary for its time. Fighter pilots had to match speed perfectly to reconnect. It was flying chess, played at 200 miles per hour. 7 Antonov A-40, the flying tank. The Soviets didn't want to drop tanks into war zones. They wanted to glide them in. The Antonov A-40 was literally a tank with wings. A lightweight T-60 light tank was given detachable glider wings and towed behind a bomber. But the drag was so bad, the bomber had to cut it loose early. The tank crash-landed, the wings broke, and the project was grounded for good. Still, they actually tried. In theory, the tank would land, detach its wings, and drive straight into battle. In reality, it barely stayed airborne. Only one test flight was attempted, and that was enough. 6 mil Mi-10, the flying crane. With its spider-like landing gear and ability to carry entire buildings, the Mi-10 looked ridiculous until it lifted 15 tons like it was nothing. Nicknamed the Flying Crane, this helicopter had precision cargo handling gear and a cabin view floor to position payloads. It carried tanks, buses, and even prefabricated buildings. It may have looked like a bug, but it flew like a brute. The long legs allowed it to straddle and pick up heavy cargo directly from the ground. Crews nicknamed it the Giraffe for its towering profile. It was ugly, but unstoppable. This isn't ancient history. It happened in 2011. The K-84 Ekaterinburg, a nuclear submarine loaded with 4 nuclear missiles, caught fire in dry dock. The flames nearly reached the nuclear reactor chamber. Had it exploded, it could have rivaled Chernobyl. The Soviets built the K-84 to be invisible underwater and deadly above it. But in the end, it nearly destroyed its own creators. Officials tried to cover up how close it came to total meltdown. The fire burned for hours before being contained. It was a terrifying reminder that Cold War hardware never really sleeps. 4. Lund-class Ekranoplan, sea monster plane. The Lund class was not a plane. It wasn't a boat. It was a winged sea monster. Using ground effect physics, it flew just above water, too low for radar, too fast to intercept. It carried 6 anti-ship missiles, moved at 340 miles per hour, and made naval commanders sweat. Imagine a stealth bomber that surfs the ocean. That's the Lund. It looked like a spaceship skimming the Black Sea. With just one in existence, it now sits abandoned, giant and ghostly. Still, it remains one of the most bizarre military vehicles ever built. 3. Project Ekip, Soviet UFOs. Ekip looked like a UFO, and that was the point. This disc-shaped craft was designed for takeoff on land, water, even snow. It used air cushion lift to fly at low altitudes with ultra-low fuel burn. It was pitched as the future of passenger transport and even crop dusting. But when the USSR collapsed, funding dried up. It never made it past test runs, but it left behind real prototypes. Test models were spotted in hangars, feeding alien rumors for years. Its lift system was ahead of its time, quiet, clean, and nearly vertical. It could have changed aviation if the economy hadn't crashed first. 2. Bartini-Beriev VVA-14, sea-skimming starfighter. This one looks like something out of Star Wars, but the VVA-14 was all Soviet engineering. It was designed to take off vertically, fly over oceans, and hunt US submarines. It had vertical lift jets, massive pontoons, and a design so complex only one prototype flew. It had a terrifying beauty, like the Millennium Falcon mated with a spaceship. Engineers struggled for years with stability and flight control. Despite its flaws, it broke boundaries in aviation design. Its remains still sit in a Russian museum, half-assembled and full of mystery. 1. MAZ-7907, the Soviet megatruck, with 24 wheels, twin gas turbine engines, and a frame longer than a Boeing 737. The MAZ-7907 was the Soviet Union's ultimate land beast. It was built to carry intercontinental ballistic missiles across terrain where roads didn't exist. It was 100 feet long and could tow a nuclear payload through ice, snow, or desert. Batman wishes his Batmobile looked this mean. It used electric motors to power each axle, like a hybrid monster truck. It never entered full service, but its power was undeniable. Even parked, it looked like it could win a war. Outro, 8:30 as 9 horas. Near flying saucers, sub-surfing bombers. These machines weren't myths. They were engineered, tested, and in some cases, nearly deployed. Which one blew your mind the most? Drop your pick in the comments. And if Cold War tech fascinates you, hit that like button, subscribe, and prepare for our next deep dive into history's weirdest weapons. Because truth really is stranger than fiction, especially when the Soviets built it.